Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Makbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, of course, we'll be taking a look at what has developed in Punjab in a series of events, of course, starting earlier from the announcement of the dissolution of assemblies and then the kind of moves that took place with regards to a vote of confidence being called by the governor and then a no confidence motion also moved by the current political setup. And then in the aftermath of that, we saw that there was no vote of confidence that took place, which, of course, was termed unconstitutional by both sides, with the speaker saying that the governor's order was unconstitutional and the governor saying that the speaker's ruling was unconstitutional. And so in a move on Thursday night, we saw that the governor denotified the CM and talked about the fact that because there was no vote of confidence taken, he no longer continues to be the Chief Minister of Punjab, but can continue his office till his next successor. And then, of course, we saw Parvez Ilahi moving the courts on this matter, which later, of course, restored the CM on an interim basis with regards to, of course, the undertaking as well that was asked of him, that he will not be dissolving the assemblies till the next hearing that is planned on the 11th of January next year. And so we also know that meanwhile this was happening, there was also a resolution that was passed in the Punjab Assembly, of course, the technicality of which was then questioned later by other political leaders as well, since the matter was still in the courts at that point, with regards to the governor's order. And then we also saw the PMLN and the PPP withdraw their no confidence motion, saying it's no longer needed and that the KP and Punjab assemblies are secure and that the PTI government should be focusing on their own governments and to take care of the people rather than these political games. But of course, there are big question marks that still remain as to what is going to happen. Of course, we have the next hearing that we're going to see more coming in from. But then since then, of course, the kind of political narratives that have existed from various political parties and of course the issue of the Punjab Assembly and also the issue of alliances still remains. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about that and trying to understand what is it that it can be expected from Punjab and the rest of the country in the coming days. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farooq Patafi, and today we've also been joined by legal expert Mr. Umar Gilani. He's joined us in the studio. Thank you very much, Mr. Umar, for joining us. We've also been joined by Senator PMLN Rana Makbool Ahmed Saab, who's joined us on Skype. Thank you very much, Rana Saab, for joining us and being a part of the debate as always. And let me start off with you as well, considering, of course, that there have been a series of moves that we've seen coming in and a series of announcements from the PMLN and the PDM side, considering the kind of strategies and moves, including even the governor's rule and others that were being deliberated upon. And then we, of course, saw what the governor did in terms of the denotification of the CM, which, of course, now is under the court's matter. But when we take a look at the situation, it seems that it's just been stalled, and for now, the CM Punjab have been restored. But what do you make of what can be expected from this situation, since, of course, what the current political setup was claiming was that this was something very clear, that this was an unconstitutional move and that he should not continue as the new chief minister. What do you think is expected in terms of the decision or the next hearing? Rana Saab, can you please unmute yourself? We cannot hear you. Please unmute yourself, Rana Saab. We won't be able to hear you. Rana Saab, can you hear me now? Go ahead. Okay, we'll try and connect once again with Rana Saab and then try and understand his perspective as well. But let me ask you, Umar Saab, considering the kind of questions that have risen throughout, of course, a lot of these discussions as to the legalities of what the matter. And then, of course, we've talked about right now the governor's orders and then, of course, the speaker's ruling. But at the moment, it seems that the question now is in the court, and we have for now seen that there is a restoration of the CM. But in terms of the hearing that took place today, I want to understand a few things, starting off with the fact that why was it a necessary requirement from the court to ask for an undertaking from the Chief Minister in terms of the dissolution of the assemblies, given also the fact that the vote of confidence or the matter of the vote of confidence was still something that was being discussed?
So I think the fundamental question here is that what is the correct procedure for removing a chief minister? And the constitution provides two different pathways for this. The principal pathway, in my view, is the pathway that was earlier adopted, which is that members of the assembly, more than 1/5 of the assembly members, can at any point in time move a motion for no confidence, and afterwards the chief minister is bound within a period of between 3 to 7 days show that confidence. That is the principal method of removing a chief minister who has lost the confidence of the assembly. The other method is that if the assembly, again I think we have to look at the constitution as a whole. The idea seems to be that if the assembly is not in session and a movement for no confidence can not be moved by members of the assembly, in that case the governor can, if there are circumstances and reasons, solid reasons to believe that the chief minister has lost the confidence of the assembly, then the governor can intervene and ask him to show the confidence of the assembly in the government of the day. But that is the secondary method, not the principal one. And the problem is that once the assembly moves against a chief minister, there is a the danger is that if the chief minister is losing the confidence of the assembly, he or she might move to to dissolve the assembly itself. So to safeguard against that, the constitution says that once a motion for no confidence has been moved against a government, that beleaguered, besieged government cannot dissolve the assembly. So the constitution has sort of balanced both sides. Now what happened here is that first the assembly members moved for a motion of no confidence, and then in the middle of it the governor also came in. So they were really trying to get the chief minister from all sides, and I think that may be the reason why that overkill may be the reason why the court today has actually suspended the governor's order. You have to understand that the court would not ordinarily suspend an order unless it thinks that there is prima facie no logical or legal basis for it.
Right, I understand, but my question remains in terms of the undertaking that was taken and why it was necessary, because we had a no confidence motion in place, we had a question mark on the vote of confidence also, and so it seemed that the dissolution of assemblies wasn't going to happen. Why was the undertaking necessary?
The undertaking was necessary because the motion for no confidence has been withdrawn. And once the motion for no confidence by the assembly itself has been withdrawn,
but that was done later.
The chief minister had already, had resumed sort of his right to dissolve the assembly, and that is precisely why the governor struck. So in a sense, the court has tried to balance off both sides here, and I don't see how we can blame the court for doing it, because if we allow, well, it's not just about a question of contempt for me. I think I see some logic here, because the court has on the one hand prevented the government from dissolving the assembly, and that assembly still retains the right to get rid of the chief minister, the government. So in a sense, there's a stalemate here. And let's see what happens next.
All right, I'll come back to you with more legal questions, but let me also welcome in the debate Mr. Haider Waheed, who's a political analyst. He joined us on telephone line. Thank you very much, Haider Saab, for being a part of the debate. Considering, of course, what is going on in Punjab, there are a lot of question marks in terms of where do different parties stand and what seemed to be happening. A lot, of course, is also being questioned in terms of the overall objectives or overall achievements through all of the different moves that different parties have made, starting off from the PTI chairman's announcements to the kind of moves that were taken within the Punjab Assembly, and then of course with the involvement of the governor and the CM as well, and the speaker. And so it seems that a lot of this political development seems to have not given us anything as of yet, and has of course added to more instability in the country. Do you think that this is perhaps something that can possibly lead to some sort of political achievement or clarity for any of the parties involved, or for the general public, or even in terms of constitutional progress? Is there something that we are going to be able to get out of this?
Well, I think that already PMLN has gotten something out of it for sure, and so has the governor. After all, it was Imran Khan and PTI and the PTI coalition government that was seeking to dissolve the assemblies. This entire circus started because of that, and the vote of no confidence and the vote of confidence and all of that jazz only came about to stop the dissolution. The denotification of the chief minister also happened only to stop the dissolution. So at this point, what has happened today? There's no dissolution happening, and yet you are free to move a no confidence, which won't happen because there's no need, because there's no dissolution happening. And the denotification is gone. Who cares? It was only brought about to stop the dissolution, which has been stopped anyway. So I think that everyone's talking about PTI getting an interim order in their favor. I think today's proceedings have gone squarely against them, especially politically, if not legally. And I think it is their hands that have now been tied in respect of the dissolution. And the chief minister, who I don't think ever wanted to dissolve in the first place, now has a wonderful excuse not to do so. So really, the chief minister wins, PMLN wins, the government wins, and the ones that hold the key to Pervez Elahi also win. And it's really Imran Khan that's left out in the lurch for now. And now this is an interim arrangement, mind you. But if you look at the political side of this, everyone's going into the nitty-gritty about how an interim order has been passed and a notification has been suspended, and what a wonderful thing that is that on the first date of hearing, the suspension has been obtained. But wait a minute, who's winning here? It's those that wanted to stop the dissolution. Those are the ones winning. The ones that wanted the dissolution are losing. It is an interim measure, but that's really the long and short of it.
Right, absolutely. But what we've been hearing from the PTI leaders is that, and also from the PMLQ side as well, is that the matter of the dissolution of assemblies is not yet over, and that eventually, when the vote of confidence is taken, and they'll prevail and they will dissolve the assemblies. Rana Sahab, is that something that the current political setup is also thinking of as a possibility, or is it a triumphant space at the moment for the many months to come, as Haider Saab was mentioning?
And Rana Sahab, could you also explain a little bit this aspect? Yesterday, when we were closing the program, we actually were ending the program on an optimistic note that perhaps nothing bad is going to happen. But in the end, we saw that there was this order, this denotification order, which eventually led the case to the court. The question is, why did the governor feel compelled to actually denotify when the speaker of Punjab Assembly had already said that there is not going to be, dissolution before January?
Thank you very much. I think now I'm talking loud and clear. Is my voice audible to every honorable participant? Thank you very much.
Yes.
It is.
Yes, this decision was taken late at night yesterday. I personally think that decision should have been avoided. But it was taken because it was thought appropriate by the governor himself. He consulted many lawyers, very senior lawyers and law practitioners, and he did reach this conclusion that he must take cognizance the disobedience demonstrated by the chief minister. But there was a subtle point between the lines that it was the speaker who was addressed to take cognizance and call for the session, and then make an arrangement for the chief minister to take a vote of confidence. That was there. But the main broad objective was this, that chief minister must take a vote of confidence. Now it was challenged, okay, now everything has been straightened. 11th of January is the last date. And what we understand that the chief minister will have to take vote of confidence before 11th of January. That is there, and perhaps in the detailed order, which we'll be receiving tomorrow, it's being mentioned, because the counsels of the governor, though he was not given an opportunity of audience by the court, they said that the notice has not been issued to the governor, but the governor's counsel was there and he was not heard in detail. But he said that this understanding was there with the court, that the chief minister will have to go for vote of confidence before 11th of January. That is there. So if he does take the confidence, and the confidence of the electoral college is demonstrated during this exercise, then he may continue. If he doesn't obtain the appropriate proportion of votes, which are needed for having the majority in the House of the total votes of the House, then he'll have to quit. And a new election will be held for the Chief Minister, and new candidates will be invited to come over and participate. So, particularly as per law, the Assembly is not vulnerable now. The basic crux and objective of the PDM government was that the Assembly should continue, because they have a very strong feeling that the leader, like leader Imran Khan, who has become an ambassador of erosion and convulsions and commotions, he is to be stopped somewhere, because he is always searching for opportunity to create turbulence. And turbulence is not in the interest of the country and its economy, its polity as well. So that was the reason.
Right.
And once this was discussed at length, and people had a glance at the text of the Charter of Democracy, that is very clearly mentioned that the participant and the partners and signatories to this Charter of Democracy must ensure that the assemblies complete their tenures, because that will be a guarantee for political stability. So this is a collective opinion now that the assemblies...
Right, absolutely, and Rana Sahab,
Yes.
that's of course important in terms of what the country needs as well in terms of political stability, of course. But again, we're at a point that the matters, of course, have gone to the courts, and unfortunately, that's not where we want to see these discussions taking place in terms of the kind of role that we'd like our political leaders to play. And so, Haider Sahab, considering, of course, that this is a matter of concern still, that we don't have these discussions in the Parliament, and again, that the Parliament is not used as the floor where we need to perhaps have these discussions on the Constitution.
I apologize, but you're going to have to repeat yourself. There's a lot of disturbance in the line. Can you repeat your question, please?
That we, of course, have a concern with regards to where the matter stands now. Of course, it's gone to the courts, and it's not the first time that such matters have gone to the courts. Again, what we would like to see, of course, is the role of the Parliament being strengthened, but unfortunately, that space is not being used to debate upon these legal concerns. Isn't that also still a concern in this particular situation as well, even if we have perhaps saved the assemblies from dissolution?
Absolutely. I think that we're just like a bunch of jokers, really. I mean, the parliamentarians have proved time and again that they can't even sit together and sort out their parliamentary issues even at a base level. You see, any degree of a mature system or mature democracy would have at least the base things covered as far as being able to negotiate your way out of constitutional crises. But we seem to not even agree on base level things because we won't sit together and talk at all. And I think the major culprit for that has been Imran Khan's attitude about not sitting with the opposition when he was Prime Minister. And this acrimony started right from his Dhanna days, where there has been absolute animosity. And at front and center, there has never been the people's interest, the people's issues. After all, these people are elected to solve people's issues, to enact laws that will then enable the executive to solve people's issues. That's why they're there. And it seems like they're there just for the power grab. There is no lofty cause. There is no lofty purpose. There is only one purpose, power grab, nothing else. And they seem to be completely incapable of solving things themselves, which is why it ends up in court, it ends up in the establishment, and they end up looking like jokers. And this is, I think it's an appalling state of affairs, where I think that the problem is there isn't a political consequence to it. In a mature democracy, because our systems aren't allowed to run, if we had 5-year cycles happen continuously, you would have political consequences for running this kind of circus, which has absolutely nothing to do with the public interest.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Haider Waheed Saab, for joining us and being a part of the debate and taking the time out. Farooq, of course, we've talked about accountability and consequence and, of course, all of these measures before, but we don't seem to find a lot of space for these within the political discussion. And we can talk about, of course, what certain political leaders have done in the past or the kind of damage that has incurred. But at the end of the day, it still seems that despite whatever issues are being discussed, even if there is the Punjab Assembly crisis at the moment, it will phase away and we'll forget about it soon and we'll move on as if nothing happened. How can that be changed?
Right, Sana, when we used to actually fight the war on terror, at that time people kept on saying that we are a very resilient nation. And there was this question whether there is this resilience or there is denial that we carry on no matter what. It seems that when it comes to Pakistan's democratic maturity, denial is the name of the game, and that continues. That's why the moment this situation will dissipate, we will all forget this and we'll keep marching on until we end up with another crisis, right? But I wanted to actually start with, remembering the sacrifices rendered by the cops today in Islamabad when they actually thwarted a suicide attack. One of them actually embraced Shahadat, martyrdom, and the others were injured. They are in hospital. So let us keep them in our memory, in our mind, while we talk about alleged national crises like Punjab, where I think nothing but musical chair is going on. Yesterday, as I actually put to Rana Sahab as well, if you remember, Sana, we were optimistic that there is going to be no constitutional crisis and there perhaps won't be any heading towards the courts. But that didn't happen. We saw the notification, the order to de-notify the chief minister. So I actually immediately sprung into action and I tried to get an answer. And I called I used to report from Lahore as well and used to do shows as well. So I called all the contacts. There were two things that actually gave, that were actually cited as an explanation. The first one was, do you want me to conclude quickly? I can.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I thought that perhaps because there are so many guests, you want me to dash it. But anyways, regarding Lahore, regarding Punjab, one impression was that while Sultan Khan was the Speaker of Punjab Assembly, was saying that they are going to hold the vote of no confidence or confidence in January, there was a possibility that today they could conclude the session and immediately the Chief Minister could have actually sent the Assembly packing. We have an example of that. If you remember, at the center, the Deputy Speaker actually dissolved the Assembly while actually sitting in the vote of no confidence session, right? So you could not put anything past PTI. This is one aspect. The second one was that yesterday PTI had called for a protest around Governor House, and the intelligence report suggested that the total number of people who were protesting there was not more than 600 or 700. So because of that, they also thought that they can take this risk. Now, eventually, it had to go to the court, and it has gone to the court. Now, regarding the undertaking that you were talking about, I think the matter was actually brought in the court in such a way that it automatically, or dissolution of assemblies became automatically a part of discussion. From the governor's side, it was also submitted that they can actually dissolve the assemblies. The second thing was that when Barrister Ali Zafar was citing the case of Manzoor Wattu, in 1997, at that time he actually talked about the appropriate time to actually hold a vote of no confidence. At that time, honorable judges actually said that at that time there was an undertaking, or there was this bar on the Chief Minister that he will not dissolve the Assembly. Right. So can you do the same? Barrister Ali Zafar took 2 breaks and went and got, support or permission from whosoever he wanted to. Of course, his client seemed to be Chief Minister, but in the end, it ended up at Zaman Park, the Royal Court of Zaman Park, where they sought permission, and eventually this happened. Which actually brings me back to the question, why is it all happening? We keep on saying that Imran Khan Sahab is a Teflon man, that whatever you do, it never sticks. But I think there is another accusation that actually is more important right now, that he is Ladla, somehow he is the beloved of the system or overall bureaucracy and the entire state. And I think that even today, the whole thing, this entire crisis is enacted, created by one man. Because one day he brought his armies to Islamabad, and there he could actually not muster up the kind of support. And he just actually stated that he is going to dissolve assemblies. And because of that, the chief minister, the speaker of Punjab Assembly, all the MPs, and then the system itself seem to be actually catering to his demand or his image. If that was not the case, why is it that the chief minister and the lawyer of the chief minister, and then of course son of the chief minister, were all presenting themselves in the court of Zaman Park?
Right,
I mean,
absolutely.
this is the biggest question right now. If you are enthralled by one man, then you are giving him so much power that then you cannot actually ensure that democracy is ever going to work in this country.
Right, and of course that is what we're going to ask Rana Saab in a bit, because he said this of course needs to be stopped, but we haven't seen much of that happening. But let me speak to Mr. Osama before that. Considering of course that when we take a look at the situation, there's Mr. Umar, sorry, that when we take a look at the situation, there's also of course the issue in terms of where we stand now at the date of January 11th. Of course we can see that the matter may have been stalled a little till then, but the question marks still remain. And a lot of what is being discussed, especially in terms of the dissolution of assemblies or where KP and Punjab stand right now, will of course depend a lot of that. And it seems from our discussion earlier with the analysts as well that whatever was being planned to come in the way of the current political setup has been diverted. Is that really the case? Can we see that the courts moving forward will not go anywhere closer to what the PTI earlier had in mind?
So I think that that's true. What the PTI initially wanted is to dissolve the assemblies as soon as possible and to rush this country into another round of elections. And what has happened today is that this is not going to happen anytime soon. So if but everybody else has sort of gained something out of it, as was being said earlier. I think the federal government wanted to avert the possibility of a dissolution, and that has been done.
Yeah, but at what cost? The entire system was paralyzed for a few days.
Absolutely,
I mean,
yeah.
and then the whole system had to come together to actually, procure this much time. Umar Sahib, this is the biggest question.
No, I think
why
that is
should we
absolutely
be
true.
wasting that much time?
There is a fundamental problem with our democracy, and I think that problem can be attributed. I think I wouldn't go so far as to say that this is entirely of Imran Khan's creation, but yes, he epitomizes it.
Okay.
And that problem is that this country was not meant to be a mob democracy. It was meant to be a representative constitutional democracy.
A republic.
Where there is a number of institutions and a number of people who wield power. But if there steps in a politician who wants to amass all the power of all the people and of all the institutions into himself, then there is going to be constitutional crisis. We are lucky that there are still institutions in this country. There is a system of division and separation of powers which has not allowed that to happen. But there is definitely a fascist tendency in some parties and some personalities which is giving rise to all of these constitutional crises. These crises are happening because the system, that constitutional system envisaged by our forefathers, is putting resistance to somebody's fascist drives.
Yeah, but again,
we don't know
sorry,
how
I
long
don't want
we
to
will be
turn
able-
it into debating.
we don't know
match.
how long this
But
will
very
this will
humbly,
happen.
let me actually just offer a counterpoint and request you to actually give a reaction to that. We are sitting to another country, next to another country called India, which was supposed to have more boisterous, diffusion of power and all these checks and balances. We saw how quickly the entire system was co-opted by one party, one man, and now nobody dares to actually speak in his presence.
So
Right now, only few things had gone south. Things would have been exactly the same.
I think, Farooq Saab, that is actually the point to take home today, because there is a sunny side to it as well.
No, but
What
we are
has- what
placating
we
a
have
man's, whims.
Yes, Farooq Saab, but I think the comparison with India's democracy in the way it has so quickly deteriorated is actually a tribute to the resilience of Pakistani people and their institutions. you know, I wouldn't want to name names, but we came
which
for the last
institution,
few
civil or military?
for the last few years, we came very close to a very authoritarian system.
Umar Sahab, which system, institution, civilian or military?
I think it was a mixture of what we
It
were
was
calling,
military, right?
It was the hybrid regime which we were talking, which is a combination of fascist political parties and state institutions coming together to hijack the entire country. That experiment in Pakistan has failed. The people have defeated it. You and I and everybody who's watching, and the institutions of this country.
No, the impression is that the military institutions actually saved the day. It wasn't the civilian institution which saved
I
the
think
day.
there was a genuine resistance.
Let us also go to Rana Sahab
Yeah.
because he's been waiting very patiently
Yeah.
for quite some time now. Rana Sahab, you can also comment on the discussion that was earlier being held, but also in terms of course, the conversation with regards to Imran Khan and what he has contributed towards the political dynamics. We've heard statements coming in from political leaders from your party, even the Prime Minister sharing their opinion as to the kind of damage that has incurred. But again, we of course need to also see any sort of consequence that is also being asked. You just mentioned it yourself, and asked by other political leaders of the current setup as well. This is something that should happen. But again, you're of course in authority. What do you think should happen, or what would you do about this situation?
Asra, my ideal would be, for me, we talk about constitution a lot. Do we implement the constitution? Government is, for all practical purposes, is the custodian of the constitution. Is the government implementing the constitution? Or the other institutions are implementing the constitution, the provisions of the constitution? The Supreme Court observed, rather directed, that the constitution has been violated when vote of no confidence was there in the National Assembly. The Deputy Speaker violated the Constitution, the Speaker violated the Constitution, the Prime Minister violated the Constitution. There is a clear direction. What action has been taken against them? So we are hesitant. I will fully agree with my friend Patafi Saab. If you don't implement law dedicatedly in letter and spirit, you will land nowhere except for getting further confused and further destabilized. I personally think had proper action been taken against the people who were guilty of violating the Constitution, you wouldn't have seen this situation. So we'll have to go for real introspection as a nation, as a political committee, as a government, and as the laureates like Padafi Saab, all intellectuals, that we must mean business. Whosoever commits culpable crime should be taken to task. You will see the difference. That is the major problem with us. It's therefore Mr. Imran Khan, who has become a loose cannon, and he does not observe any discipline or any ethics or any values of the political system. He is violating everything with total impunity. So therefore, I personally think we must take cognizance of this.
Yes, but Rana Sahab, and do what? Take cognizance and do what?
We must prosecute. We must go after the legal procedure.
Then why hasn't it happened so far?
So this is the weakness of the political strata. There's a lack of resolve, lack of political will. What not? This is the reason. Had we been very, very firm on taking action against the people who defied law, who defied constitution, the situation would have been different. As straight as a student of law, this is my belief. And I have the experience, whenever you take proper action, appropriate action, if you can blow up the dens of the terrorists, if you can eliminate terrorism, which is the heinous most crime in the world, can't you set a few politicians right? Can't you correct their behavior to a certain extent? Are they totally immune from any action by the state? If we give discriminatory treatment, we are doing no service to the nation. So this is a great challenge for all of us. We actually live on expediencies. We live with lame excuses not to take action. If we continue doing that, we'll furthermore complicate the system, and this beautiful nation will continue, this beautiful country, which is so infatuating, will continue suffering unnecessarily due to our inadequacies. So it's a high time we try to understand the challenge and try to address the challenge meticulously and competently.
Right, absolutely. Farooq, moving forward, of course, there are still concerns with regards to what is going to be the evolving situation in Punjab. But what earlier one of our analysts was talking about was the fact that it's very clear that the kind of objectives that the PTI had in terms of the dissolution, in terms of the call for early elections, is not something that is going to happen. Of course, we have the hearing that still remains on the 11th. But do you think that's true in terms of the moves that the PTI had earlier planned, that they are now short of cards?
Right, Sana. I think that today it was really, quite clear that PTI is actually seeking some kind of face saving, because at that time when undertaking was demanded, at that time, the Honorable Counsel from the, Chief Minister actually said, sir, if you order us, we will ensure that Assembly is not dissolved. And then the Honorable Court had to remind him that it is not the purview of the court to actually order such a thing, because the Chief Minister already has the powers, and that would be akin to interfering in executive branches operations, right? And then, of course, the undertaking was given. But, after that, I think it is quite clear. There was another thing that happened today in Zaman Park. Today, there was a sweeping operation at Zaman Park residence. Because of the leaks, Imran Khan Sahab was worried that there might be some bugging devices in the house, and that's why that sweep actually took place. And that actually indicates where Imran Khan Sahab's concerns now are. If they lose Punjab's government, of course, that kind of a cover will be gone. So he does not want to lose that power as well. When he announced, he did not know that such a big personal crisis is brewing. And that's why I think today was a kind of a step back. But this entire thing that the Chief Minister has to rush to Zaman Park, when appointing army chief, the President of Pakistan has to rush to Zaman Park and kiss the ring, that actually worries me, right? Let me actually just give you a highlight of why I'm worried that all of this special treatment is going to end up compromising the very virtue of democracy and constitutionalism. Let me, I don't bring personal matters on air, but a day before Iftikhar Chaudhry was, disqualified, I was in Supreme Court along with my family fighting a case that was a 20-year-old case, that was property case, right? Then that matter was sent downwards for resolution. It hasn't been resolved even yet. And the entire, legal system is paralyzed because it doesn't know what to do. And here something happened last night. And today, honorable courts were not only ready, but they held, proceedings, and they even changed, because one judge actually recused. They reformed the, court and the panel, and then they actually went for it. My concern is that if I'm an ordinary man, and I see that there are two speeds to the justice system, one for the, ladlas or whosoever are the favored ones, and the other one for the common Johnny like me or somebody else, then it becomes, it undermines my faith in the system. And this is the biggest concern right now, Sana. At this moment, one person is throwing, pardon the expression, hissy fits. And because of his hissy fits, my entire nation cannot focus on the war on terror, where people are dying daily. And my entire nation cannot focus on the people, 33 million people who are displaced, dislocated, and who are badly affected by floods. My entire nation cannot focus on economy that is killing the poor people at this moment, just because of one man. How much power are you ready to see to one man that the entire country just, goes to the dogs?
Absolutely. Umar Saab, do you agree with the kind of accusations that have been leveled in terms of the PTI chairman being at Ladla? Have there been any favors or any biasness towards him in the past?
I think I would want to skip that one because that's a very broad question. But I do agree with what Pitafi Sahib has said.
I could
and
specify it for you.
I do agree with what he has said, that it is, the question for us, sometimes I feel like all of these nitty-gritties about Article 137, Article 136, this and that, it seems so nonsensical in a country which would, it's nonsensical that we are talking about these intricacies when we should actually be talking about and concentrating on the floods and on the terrorism and on the inflation.
Absolutely.
Those are the issues which ideally the constitutional organs of this country should be obsessing with. And instead what we see is that we are all talking about musical chairs and the legal intricacies of it. This is not how it was meant to be.
Yes, and it shouldn't be, of course. And Rana Saab, we hope to see, of course, more action and decision making from your side as well, especially also in terms of accountability, not just from the PTI side, but from everyone else as well. Thank you so much for being a part of the debate. Rana Maqbool Ahmed Saab for joining us, Mr. Umar Gilani for joining us in the studios, and thank you, Farooq, for being with us, and also our guest, Mr. Haider Waheed, who joined us earlier on telephone line. Thank you very much, everyone who's watching. Of course, there is much that remains to be seen, not only in Punjab, but in the rest of the country as well, and how we prioritize our issues and how we handle them. But of course, we expect more and better from our political leaders, and we hope to see that soon. That's all that we have from the debate. We'll see you on Monday. Have a nice weekend.